All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Happy New Year. All right, well, we'll see if that's how it turns out for 2018. I did a video on our Facebook page, facebook.com/theyoungturks, where I said basically brace for impact. 2018, I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen. If anybody tells you they know what's gonna happen at this juncture, they're crazy, dog. So this is potentially the wildest ride we'll ever take, this 2018. I have a far better sense of the short term and the long term, but 2018 is a midterm and in more ways than one. Man, anything can happen this year. Anything, okay, for better or for worse. And certainly a lot of options out there for worse. But I want you guys all to rally and we all got to fight together, okay? So we'll talk about that as the year unfolds, as the day and the week unfolds. Today on Rebel headquarters after the Young Turks, I've got Benjamin Jealous, former head of the NAACP, running for Maryland, governor of Maryland, on the show, so that's going to be really interesting. And then we've got someone who put together a local campaign in Michigan that might actually end gerrymandering the state. It's amazing. So, but I tell you that because I want you guys to focus on doing things together, and we'll start small, we'll go mid-size, hopefully by the end it'll be gigantic. But as we take this roller coaster ride, let's make sure that we take action together, okay? All right, that's my little public service announcement to begin the show. In this program, we've got a wild ride for you guys. Michelle Bachmann might be coming back to take Al Franken's seat. Oh no. Okay, we'll talk about that. I'm actually going to start off with some great news in a second, as you'll see. Also, Donald Trump might release a deadly virus into the world that might be airborne. Great. Okay, we'll show you that story. A revolution is, well, I don't know about it if it's a revolution, but certainly a rebellion has begun in Iran. That's a fascinating story. There's no end to the fascinating stories on today's show. Donald Trump wants to put more of his political opponents into jail, but yet one of the worst Republican senators is retiring, which is great news. So I'll give you all the twists and turns. So let's do it. Let's start with good news. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we got it. Weed is now legal in California. Now, if ever there was cause for celebration, this is it. And I'll tell you why. It's not just because people want to get high. It's because it has huge policy ramifications. And it's not just because it's California. It's because it's over. Here, I'm going to declare it over right now. Marijuana will be legal everywhere. Once I pound the gavel, it is OVAH, OVA. So let me explain why. Let's go to HuffPost for an explanation of the law in California. Adults who are at least 21 years old can legally purchase recreational marijuana from select retail shops in California beginning Monday. So that was yesterday. A milestone that instantly makes the state the world's largest legal marijuana marketplace. Okay, so it's gigantic. California, if it was its own country, would be among the top 7 economies in the world. So that's how large California is, both in size and in economy. But there are even wider ramifications. The state's new recreational marijuana industry has a projected value of as much as $7 billion, enough to make it the world's largest legal marijuana market, and is predicted to eventually generate $1 billion annually in local and state tax revenue. OVAH, OVA. Once the government gets hooked on that $1 billion, it's a gateway drug to having marijuana legal forever. You know, I'm using gateway drug, of course, mockingly of the right wing and the preposterous argument they made about marijuana for decades and decades. But it's not just about the government needing that tax revenue. Much more importantly, guys, and what is not mentioned in these articles nearly enough, almost not at all, is once you have corporations profiting from marijuana to the tune of $7 billion in California alone, we're done with this thing. Then all of a sudden corporate power flips to the other side and goes, marijuana? What do you mean gateway drug? Scam Schedule 1, it's fantastic, it's wonderful. Do you know how much money we're making? And then you grease some politicians and this thing is done, it's done. Nobody's gonna turn down that kind of profit, and then they're gonna want it in all the neighboring states, then all the states, and then all across the world. So corporate America, unfortunately, has a lot of downsides, including bribing almost all of our politicians here in America. But the upside is, if you let corporations do marijuana, you will have legal marijuana everywhere. Okay, California produces vast amounts, as HuffPo continues to explain, Matt Ferner writing here, vast amounts of marijuana, and has done so for years. Now, more than 20 years after the state legalized medical marijuana, 28 other states allow cannabis for medical purposes. 8 states, including California and the District of Columbia, have also legalized the plant for adult recreational purposes. You're not going to roll back 28 states' legislation. This is not an issue that goes back and forth. Oh, look, the right wing is winning now and the left wing is more momentum later, and it goes, no. Once marijuana becomes legal in California, as it has now become, there's no rolling it back. You're not gonna roll back to 28 states. You know why? Because we've been right all along. There's nothing wrong with marijuana. So does it have a couple of downsides? Of course, as anything does. But is it more dangerous than heroin and cocaine and meth and fentanyl? No, it's not. Is it more dangerous than painkillers you're taking? No. Is it more dangerous than alcohol? No. So if it was, you know what would happen? After California legalized it, let alone all the other states which have already done so recreationally, let alone medical marijuana, people would have started dying, right? They would be like, oh my God, did you hear about the 13 guys who died yesterday from smoking marijuana? But that doesn't happen because it was all lies. So instead what's gonna happen is, hey, did you hear about the 13 guys or 13,000 guys who smoked marijuana the other day and felt a little bit better, either in terms of actual pain relief, which helps soldiers suffering from PTSD, as one of many, many examples? Or did you hear about the 130,000 people who smoked marijuana yesterday and had a good time, and that was that? They made a good time illegal. I thought this was a free country, but it's gonna be free again. And so this is fantastic news. Now, in California, they went a little farther. Now, why this legislation is actually even better and more progressive than in some of the other states, and honestly, I could have imagined when they started this process. The law goes beyond the regulation and taxation of marijuana and aims to repair damage from the country's failed war on drugs. Individuals with prior marijuana-related convictions that wouldn't have been a crime under the new law or would have resulted in a lesser punishment can petition courts to have their record reclassified or cleared altogether. That is great news. Now remember, one of Richard Nixon's top aides said in the 1990s, yes, we started the war on drugs to go after our political enemies, hippie liberals and black people. He said it, he told you why they did it. Now to free those prisoners that for smoking marijuana, when all of our presidents lately have smoked marijuana, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, they've all done it, right? But they never went to prison because they're among the elites. To free those people who are not in the elites, who were imprisoned and arguably enslaved, working for $1 a day at slave wages in some of these prisons, that is a monumental difference maker. It's a great day in America. They should do this all across the country. And they're not done yet. In addition, some local jurisdictions are giving priority or other assistance to marijuana business license applicants previously convicted of low-level marijuana offenses or who come from low-income communities hit hard by harsh drug war policies. For years and years, for decades, they crushed those local communities. The only economic opportunity they had, unfortunately, was the booming drug trade in their neighborhood. Now they've turned it around and said, we were wrong. So if we're going to start up shops and this is going to be legal and these are going to be real businesses, we should give those same communities which we oppressed and crushed and imprisoned for all this time for something that was actually perfectly safe. We're going to give them an opportunity first. In my mind, that is wonderful. And all these states, there are no cases of people going wild on marijuana. It was all propaganda. Nobody's lost their mind. That's not the gateway drug. The gateway drug, unfortunately, is legal prescription painkillers. As we've seen with the opioid epidemic, these steps are wonderful. One last piece of news for you in regards to this for the whole country. A recent Gallup poll found that 64% of Americans favor making marijuana legal, the highest since the pollster first posed the question almost 5 decades ago. Majorities of Republicans, Democrats, and independents all voiced support for legal marijuana. It's over. Marijuana will be legal everywhere, and it as well as should be. And California has, in my opinion, struck the death blow for this insane war on marijuana that has been going on for far too long. Another great job by one of the most progressive states in the country in leading the way towards righteousness, justice, and rationality. All right. Now, that's our interpretation. Let's turn to Fox News' interpretation. Okay. So today, California made marijuana legal. Of course, we voted on it earlier, and now it's in effect starting actually yesterday on Monday. And they also passed a law on sanctuary state, making California a sanctuary state. Now, this has made Fox News, of course, lose their minds in like almost literal reefer madness. So I'm gonna show you 2 clips associated with that, and then I'll break down their lack of logic, but they're just fun anyway. Look at these goofballs, let's watch.
January 1st, California became an official sanctuary state, not a sanctuary city, the entire state a sanctuary.
This is incredible. So what they say, oh, for the immigrants here among our population, you don't have to feel deportation. They're not immigrants. Immigrants are allowed to be here. Illegal immigrants aren't. They snuck in. That's a little dissemination. So now if you are in a public school, in a public library, a health facility, they are safe zones from Donald Trump. They say it's you against Donald Trump.
They said no such thing. Okay, we're gonna get to the marijuana in a second. And this is apparently California craziness. So if you have only heard right-wing propaganda or you've never heard it explained before, what is a sanctuary city or state? What does it do? Does it say to undocumented immigrants, hey, you all come here, we're having a party, okay? Let's all get together and have nothing but fun, and you do anything you like. No, it says if the federal government wants to turn our local law enforcement into their actors, meaning, okay, you're gonna enforce federal laws. Okay, one of those federal laws is laws about immigration. Then you have to pay me for it. You can't do unfunded mandates. Remember when conservatives pretended to be against unfunded mandates? So you can't tell me, all right, keep that guy who's undocumented in your prisons for 3 years. Now, if the guy broke a law, they're gonna keep him in California prison anyway, and then they're gonna deport him anyway. That's already part of the law. We're talking about people who did not break the law. And the federal government says, I think that guy is undocumented. Now I want you to keep him in prison indefinitely. California says, first of all, you didn't pay me to keep him in prison indefinitely. You send me the money, we'll have a conversation. Second of all, what do you mean indefinitely? That's against our due process laws, not only in the nationwide, but also for California. So no, we're not going to just do whatever the federal government tells us to do and doesn't pay for, etc. They make it seem like we're all going nuts here, and like we're finding undocumented immigrants and bringing them here and giving them cake. Hey, that's not what's happening. All right, now let's move to marijuana.
Not only if you're illegal, you're welcome in California. Also, if you want to get high, you're welcome there too. So you can be illegal and wasted on marijuana,
right,
and live in that state and be just fine.
The 6th state to legalize marijuana as of January 1st. And by the way, it's amazing how long the lines were. Well, 50% higher than they even anticipated.
So, underneath the Welcome to California sign, someone posted a sign that said, official sanctuary state, felons, illegals, and MS-13 welcome. Democrats need the votes.
Absolutely. How amazing is that? That's the
message. No, it's not. MS-13 is a brutal gang that, by the way, was created because of the insane war on drugs. We made it illegal for no reason, so people started dealing with it. And since it was illegal, black markets formed, and in those black markets, terrible gangs formed, just like when we had prohibition of alcohol. Nobody wants anybody to commit any crimes in California because we live in California. Why would we want crimes here? They think that that's how liberals are. Oh, somebody come and commit a crime against me. No, you morons. if they committed a crime, they get not only prison time, but deported anyway. So the other reason, by the way, is sanctuary cities and states, on average, have crime statistics that are lower. Why? Because if you say to the federal government, you come and take away all the undocumented immigrants, and I'll work with you, and I'll keep them in my prisons forever, or however long you want them, et cetera. And then you know what happens? Undocumented immigrants then are reluctant to report crime to the police, which breeds lawlessness. It's a terrible idea. And you know what marijuana breeds? A good time, and oftentimes better health. But these guys on Fox and Friends, by the way, I don't even believe them. The chances of those three of having never smoked pot is infinitesimally small. I would be shocked if Kilmeade and Ducey weren't high consistently, let alone that they never did it. But now, according to them, California, they're nuts, man. They got big lines of smoking marijuana, and they actually want to treat people as human beings. No, it's all about MS-13. And probably Trump saw that and thought, oh yeah, that's right, man. California, it sucks. Ducey nailed it again. All right, God bless California for passing rational laws. And if you made Fox and Friends angry, you've probably done a great thing. Okay, let's move forward. This happened over the weekend, right before the weekend started, actually, but I'm not gonna let it go because it's both too good and too grating for me. So Marco Rubio recently did an interview, and he mentioned a couple of things. One was the investigation of Donald Trump. On that, he actually had good things to say. But then he talked about the corporate tax cuts, and that was infuriating. First, let me give you the quote about the investigation. He said, I think the best thing that can happen for the president, for the country, and for everyone is that he be allowed to complete his investigation, referring to Mueller, as thoroughly and completely as possible, and that we allow the facts from that investigation to lead where they may. Now, that is the correct thing to say. If you care about America and you care about the rule of law, all senators, regardless of what party they're from, should want to enforce the law and let a special counsel do his investigation and not interfere or obstruct in that investigation. There's of course a second reason why Marco Rubio is doing it, because he's clearly going to run for president in 2020. And he already got his ass kicked by Donald Trump. He doesn't want to get his ass kicked by Donald Trump again. And if he thinks Donald Trump probably did it and you let the investigation go, and it's a little bit of turmoil, but I'm right back in this thing. Now, if that was his only quote though, I'd compliment him and say good job and be done with it, okay? And the 2020 comments and his run are more about the second part, okay? But both are related. So when they asked him about the tax cuts that they just gave to the rich and most importantly to multinational corporations, giant tax cuts. First he said, well, look, it's significantly better than what we had, but then he had the nerve to say this. He said, I thought we probably went too far on helping corporations. By and large, you're gonna see a lot of these multinationals buy back shares to drive up the price. Some of them will be forced because they're sitting on historic levels of cash to pay out dividends to shareholders. That isn't going to create dramatic economic growth. That's what we said, but we said it before you voted on the bill. This guy votes for the bill, then the next day turns around and goes, oh, golly gee, turns out we might have given the corporations too much. Did we do that by accident? Oops. Oh, it turns out they're not gonna create jobs. The whole time the Republican Party was telling you that they were gonna create jobs with the money they're gonna get, we were lying. That was a funny joke. So, no, I actually think they're gonna do stock buybacks and dividends. That's what we said. We did a whole investigation on TYT Investigates where we asked company after company after company, wait, are you actually going to create jobs? And the reality was, when you looked into the facts, no, they're gonna do exactly what Rubio says here. They have historic levels of cash. They're gonna pay out dividends to shareholders and they're gonna buy back shares. He says they're gonna be forced to. They're not gonna be forced to, they want to. They're gonna make unbelievable amounts of money for their executives. So why does Marco Rubio admit this today? First of all, it's not like you just found out yesterday. What were you doing, watching Young Turks archives and go, oh man, I didn't know that. Oh damn it, I voted the wrong way. No, he wanted to vote and help those corporations, they're his donors. The reason he makes this comment after the vote is because he's probably going to run for president again. And when he does, he'll turn around and you'll see it with your own eyes, and we might even go back to this clip. And he'll turn around and say, well, I told you after that the corporations wouldn't create jobs. I said it. I said they do mainly buybacks. I thought we were helping them too much. So he tries to have his cake and eat it too. Hey, corporate donors, don't worry, I delivered for you. Hey, voters, after I gave the corporations, in his own words, too much, I then said, well, golly gee, I feel a little bit bad about it. He doesn't feel bad about it. That was the whole point. He's owned and bought by those corporate donors. For him to disingenuously say this afterwards is appalling. I'm gonna show you one last chart here. So I show you guys this a decent amount if you watch the show. And this is a pie chart of 1952 taxes and 2015 taxes. Back in 1952, corporations used to pay almost a third of all the taxes, 32%. In 2015, that's down to 10.8%, so a little less than 11%. They have massively reduced their tax burden. They shifted that tax burden onto you, the middle class. Now, after this gigantic tax cuts that even the Republican Senator Marco Rubio says were too much in helping corporations, their share of taxes will go down even lower. Your share of taxes will go even higher. The system is rigged. It's rigged in the most obvious way. Donors privately finance elections. The politicians who are corrupt, who took that private financing, work for private interests. They work for those corporations. And then later they try to trick you into getting your vote by saying, oh, golly gee, I've had second thoughts. I think I might have helped corporations a little too much. Yeah, that's very cute, Marco, but nobody's buying it. If you had these reservations, there was an easy way to show it. You should have voted no. You voted yes, because you serve those same corporations. That's your job. You're a water boy for them. Okay. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, a deadly virus or a series of deadly viruses that Donald Trump just said could get created. What could go wrong? I'll explain. All right, back on the Young Turks. I am Soccer writes, so did freedom win or did money win in legalized pot? Well, it's a little bit of a combo there. It's mainly freedom, to be honest. But my point is that now that such a gigantic market has been created in California, from there on, it'll be money that wins. Then you'll have giant companies that are making huge profits off of it. And they're A, never gonna want to let that profit go, and B, they're gonna wanna spread that everywhere. So it was freedom up until now, largely speaking, right? And from here on out, it'll probably be the money, Lebowski. TJ says, nothing like lighting up while Cenk announces legal marijuana. Okay, agreed. Mike says, I was in LA a few weeks ago and got weed because I thought it was already legal for recreational use. Oops. I'm greatly amused by that tweet. Mike, I think you're gonna be okay. Captain Jingle Pants says, I know what's gonna happen in 2018. TYT is going to get even bigger. Well, Sir Jingle Pants, we thank you very much for that vote of confidence. I like that Anna once called you Sir Jingle Pants. I'm gonna stick with that. All right, here we go. Now let's talk about deadly viruses, including Michelle Bachmann, but one thing at a time. Okay, okay. Just when you thought Donald Trump couldn't cause a bigger mess, buckle up and brace for impact. New report out, Alternet has the story here. The US government announced it was lifting a 3-year ban on federal funding for experiments that alter viruses to make them even deadlier. Great, what could go wrong? Well, Trump, of course, had to undo that ban because it was done under Obama. If Obama did something, then Trump has to do the opposite. Let's find out if this is potentially dangerous. Gain of function research, as they call it, in which scientists make pathogens more powerful or easily transmissible, is aimed at preventing disease outbreaks by better understanding how they might occur. The studies allow scientists working in a highly controlled environment to learn how a flu virus might mutate into a superbug capable of killing millions. a sort of game of wits played to gain insight into nature's unpredictability. Now, I don't want you guys to get the wrong idea. Largely, it's scientists that are working on this, and they're not doing it to kill millions of people or to spread disease. No, they're doing it to fight disease. Here, I'll give you a little bit more on that. The ultimate goal is to proactively create vaccines, medications, and other solutions to stop contagion in its tracks. But the problem is, in order to do that, they're creating the killer vaccines and studying them. But what if they get out? Now, a lot of us have seen movies like this, but it's not just a movie, as you're gonna see at the end of the story. This has happened before. So we're playing a very dangerous game. So more on this story from Kai Holloway. The new National Institute of, Kali Holloway. The new National Institute of Health Policy reverses a 2014 Obama administration funding ban on gain-of-function research projects, specifically involving all forms of influenza virus, Middle East respiratory syndrome, MERS, and severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS. The new rules would extend beyond those viruses, applying to any pathogen that could potentially cause a pandemic, according to the New York Times. For example, they would apply to a request to create an Ebola virus transmissible through the air. Don't do that. Don't do that. So look, I trust that these are good intentioned people that are doing this in the name and interest of science, and so that we can be prepared when epidemics break out. But I think that incompetence is the trademark of this administration. As Scaramucci once said, the fish rots from the head down. I mean, Trump is the guy who looked at the solar eclipse. They told him not to. Somebody screamed while he was doing it. He was like, huh? I mean, you don't think he'll go be like, what's going on here? Blah. Right? Now, he's not physically, literally gonna do that, I hope not. But when you have an incompetent administration who doesn't care to do its homework, remember, they give him really important foreign policy matters in the size of a tweet, otherwise he can't concentrate, and they put his name in it. So, and what does he do? He hires other incompetent people. Remember, his judges recently got laughed out of the Senate, some by fellow Republicans, because they'd never been inside a courtroom. One was declared unanimously by the American Bar Association as completely incapable of doing the job, unqualified. They said unanimously agreed that he was unqualified. Now, meanwhile, in other parts of the government, they are saying that you are not allowed to use phrases like science-based and evidence-based. You want those guys giving the orders on what kind of pandemics we could play around with creating airborne viruses? No. Even under careful watch, this has led to many problems in the past. Because why? We're humans, we make mistakes. You make a mistake with a virus like this and we're all in a world of trouble, literally. So let me give you some instances in the past that did not turn out well. In 2014, CNN reported that dozens of workers at the CDC had been accidentally exposed to anthrax, while others had mishandled samples of the bacteria. No staff were found to be infected by the disease after prolonged monitoring. Man, I make a mistake on air and we get to maybe edit the video or take it down, we get to issue a correction, everybody lives. You make a mistake with anthrax because we're all humans and we make mistakes, and not necessarily that everyone lives. But wait, it gets worse. A Vice Motherboard report notes that between 2003 and 2009, there were 395 events reported that could have resulted in exposure to toxic agents, although this resulted in just 7 infections. So I'm sure that the scientists working on it are doing it with great intent, but under this administration, the last thing I want them doing is playing around with deadly viruses that could be airborne and affect millions of people on the planet. Put down the viruses. Trump has gone viral enough. Let's just save this for another time, or perhaps never. Okay, so now I'm moving on to a different kind of virus. That's Michelle Bachmann, and she might also be back. Okay. Al Franken recently said that he would be resigning and stepping down from his Senate position. So we're going to have a race for senator of Minnesota. Guess who's going to step in? Well, it turns out Michelle Bachmann has been talking to God again recently. Let's watch.
Now in Minnesota, Al Franken, as you know, has resigned. I'm from Minnesota. I've had people contact me and urge me to run for that Senate seat. So the question is, am I being called to do this now? I don't know.
Yeah, she doesn't know. She doesn't know. Could be. She could be. Maybe God called, but she missed the call. They've been playing phone tag the whole time. If you don't remember, in 2012, Michelle Bachmann claimed that God had decided that she should run for president. She said that over and over again in the primaries. Then apparently God decided that he was just punking her because she got clowned in those primaries and didn't come close to winning. Then she decided that God told her to get the hell out of the race. Now God's back on the line. So the reason you don't know, Michelle, is because God is not actually talking to you. Look, I know that for the religious folks, you guys get mad at us folks who are not believers, and you think that you are having conversations with God. But look, if you got to guess, it's probably not a real conversation. It's probably just in your head. Like if God actually calls you, all right, then, and you got him on voicemail, I hear you, okay? If God wanted to communicate to you, why would he make it so vague? Why doesn't he send you an email? Why doesn't he DM you on Twitter? Okay, I mean, but I gotta say these things, and I know like for people who don't believe in religions, you find it like absurd, it's hilarious, haha. But for religious folks, they really think, a lot of them think, it's not just Michelle Bachmann, that God is in constant communication with them. And she's like, God, do you want me to run? Don't you want me to run? Last time you clowned me, I don't know. I told everybody you were on my side. It turns out you were on Mitt Romney's side, which made no sense. Or actually, Mitt Romney lost to Obama. Oh my God, did God want Obama to win twice? But look, for the regular religious person, I'm trying to talk to them in some sense to them. We could agree, we could disagree. But these folks who are the so-called leaders, Michelle Bachmann, and she's talking to Jim Baker here on his show, are cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Listen to the next thing Jim Baker says.
Could you handle it again?
Oh, I could handle the job. I know how to do the job. I know how to do the job.
But the pain of the job.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I've got to figure out.
It's a dirty fight.
It isn't even
this country, everything about what was going on, the fight for everything, the political and the press. It's dirty.
It's like nothing we've ever seen before.
It's a fight to death. And right now, they want to kill the president of the United States. And if they could put a contract, which they probably already have, they would do so.
Wait, what do you say to that? But they rile people up. A lot of people watch that show and they go, oh yeah, God definitely wants Michelle Bachmann. And God, this, that, the other thing. And oh no, yeah, of course, they're trying to assassinate the president right now. Oh yeah, well, that's definitely happening. I heard it on Jim Baker's show, it's true. It's not true. Nobody trying to kill the president right now. There actually was one assassination attempt on Trump, but nobody ever talks about it. Why? It was a young white guy from Britain. So they couldn't demagogue on it, so they just dropped it in terms of propaganda. That guy should actually be punished to the fullest extent of the law, and I hope he is, but nobody's paying attention. Look, you know what? I believe in Minnesota, and I believe that you are not going to pick a lunatic like Michelle Bachmann. So I want her to run. I know, be careful what you wish for. But if she's a Republican candidate and she's going out there all over Minnesota going, God faxed me the other day, he's a little behind the times, and he wants me to be the next senator, blah, blah, blah. Good luck to you, sister. Try that all you want. I don't think it's gonna work. I think you sound absolutely ridiculous. And I do have to confess to being entertained by you though. So come on back, see how it looks. The water's warm, come on, Michelle, it'll be a lot of fun. Okay, we move forward. Speaking of people that are making a comeback, okay? So Orrin Hatch is the longest serving Republican senator there is in Congress. He's been there for 42 years. He's on a powerful head of the Finance Committee in the Senate. He had always wanted to do tax cuts for the rich, and he finally got it, and he was elated by that. And then the Salt Lake City Tribune named him the Utah of the Year. He proudly tweeted that out. He unfortunately did not read the article, as he apparently does not read the bills. And so when he read the article, he found out, oops, they actually were saying he's the most important guy in Utah, but they also said he had, quote, utter lack of integrity, and he had an unquenchable thirst for power. So, oops, shouldn't have tweeted that out. So it's obvious that some folks in Utah are trying to push Hatch out. They've had enough. I argued at the time that it was because Mitt Romney wanted to take his place, and he has a lot of very powerful allies in Utah. So today, Orrin Hatch came out with a statement. Let's begin to watch.
My fellow Utahns, for over 40 years, I've had the great honor of serving as your senator. As many of you know, I came up during the Great Depression, living in a ramshackle house built with recycled lumber from the local scrapyard. My parents gave us everything they had, but in the eyes of the world, we still didn't have much. Only in a nation like ours could someone like me, the scrappy son of a simple carpenter, grow up to become a United States senator.
Man, he's got scrap on the mind. He's scrappy from the scrapyard, okay? And they put together scraps. Remember, I was poor once before I became corrupt and took all the money and got all the money for my lobbyist family members from all the corporate donors that we got that we just gave the giant tax cut for. You remember, you too can grow up to be scrappy and take giant checks from corporate donors, only in America. So is he going to the scrapyard? Well, let's watch.
When the president visited Utah last month, he said I was a fighter. I've always been a fighter. I was an amateur boxer in my youth, and I brought that fighting spirit with me to Washington. But every good fighter knows when to hang up the gloves. And for me, that time is soon approaching. That's why, after much prayer and discussion with family and friends, I've decided to retire at the end of this term.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Down goes Hatch! Down goes Hatch! Down goes Hatch, finally, after 42 years. Okay, now, did we get him? No, Mitt Romney got him. I love this coy quote that his spokesperson gave before Hatch decided to step down. He said, I haven't spoken directly to the governor, referring to Mitt Romney, about his intentions, but I do think he maintains a desire to serve the public. I think if an opportunity arose, he would seriously consider it. Oh, you think so? Of course, he's gonna run for that seat. And they say that he'll probably win it easily. And then, of course, Twitter was all over this. I can give you dozens of these. I'll give you one, though. This one was fun. Credit to Colin Campbell there. That's Romney on his horse, and it says, time to put on your coat, Rafalka. We ride west tonight. Remember, they were bragging about how Mitt Romney was down to earth, and his wife also does down to earth things like she makes horses dance. I'm not kidding. That's real. And they're like, what? Doesn't everybody make their horses dance? Well, they're going to be dancing over to Utah. Of course, Romney is Mormon. He helped Utah with the Olympics back in the day, then became the governor of Massachusetts, and now probably heading back out to Utah to become a senator. I'll give Romney this, man. This guy is persistent. He will not let this bone go. He wants to get into government and he wants to come back. And if you think he won't run for president again, you don't know Mitt Romney. So this is his way of snaking back in. Man, he shivved Orrin Hatch hard. Nothing I like more than Republican on Republican crime. Okay, and remember, Romney was also tough on Trump and said a lot of things about how during the campaign, how he was crass, and then he also said that Roy Moore was immoral, and he took a tough stance. Of course, until Donald Trump said he might become Secretary of State, and all of a sudden you had a different Mitt Romney. So if you think Mitt Romney is going to be a tough guy in the Senate, don't forget, this might be the Mitt Romney we wind up getting. Oh, that's so sad. That's one of the saddest pictures I've ever seen. That's when Donald Trump was saying, oh, sure, maybe I'll make you Secretary of State. Of course, I'm going to give it to the CEO of ExxonMobil. They got to deal with Russia. Come on, Reek. I'll give you a little bit of power. That's who Mitt Romney is. Can't wait. All right, I got to take a break, guys. I know you want me to keep going, but don't worry, I will right after the break. Donald Trump with another insane, not just conspiracy theory, but a plan to maybe arrest his political opponents. Who's he targeting this time? And then unfortunately, another right-wing terror attack that, of course, no one else is talking about. We'll share it with you when we return. All right, back on the Young Turks. The Forgotten Arm writes in, so cut the funding / hiring of people at the CDC while not trusting scientific terms or methods. Do you want zombies? Because that's how you make zombies. Norma writes, did Cenk just quote Scaramucci on the potential consequences of deadly viruses? My God, we're doomed. And John Connor writes, Trump to release virus soon. Symptoms include dull senses, inability to control brain-to-mouth communications, baldness, and an orange hue. Okay, members of the day are Bobby Smith and Brittany Hodge. You guys are awesome. Thank you for being members. We'll talk about our New Year's Eve weekend. When did I go to bed on New Year's Eve? Did I go to a party held by some here at TYT? Did we have nothing but fun? What did I do? What did Anna do? We'll have that fun discussion in the post game. Of course, members get the full 2-hour show, no ads, and you support independent media and Rebel Headquarters, and Aggressive at Old School, and postgame. TYTnetwork.com/join. Come join and support independent media as we try to give it to you as it is. So, speaking of which, let's go over here. Okay. So Donald Trump is back with yet another conspiracy theory and why more of his political opponents should be in prison. This one is going after Huma Abedin. She was the top aide to Hillary Clinton. Why? Well, let's begin to explain. Mediate writes, according to an FBI report obtained by the conservative watchdog group Judicial Watch, Abedin used a Yahoo account if her official State Department account was down or if she needed to print an email or document. This was back when she served under then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in the report. Abedin explained that it was difficult to print from the DOS system, so she routinely forwarded emails to her non-Department of State accounts so she could more easily print. Oh my God, they got her. She used a Yahoo account. Oh, round them up. I'm not kidding, that's the thrust of this. So let me give you the actual background on this. So they say it was a big problem that she's transferred some official emails to her Yahoo account, and the Daily Caller, whatever they are, then wrote a new article about this saying Judicial Watch got the emails and some of them were on the Yahoo account, and then Yahoo was infiltrated and hacked. So since they hacked 1 billion accounts, Abedin's must have been one of them. So she, I guess, kind of must have exposed some of those emails to potential hackers. But first of all, it is massively tangential. It's a tiny little story, but more important than any of that is that this is what James Comey actually investigated. And what actually led to potentially Donald Trump winning was, remember when Comey, a little bit before the election, came out and said, oh my God, there's new emails on Huma Abedin's laptop because it might have gone to Anthony Weiner. They looked at all these emails. This is just Judicial Watch getting the old emails that the FBI already investigated and found no criminal activity at all. But that didn't stop Donald Trump, of course. So he tweets out, crooked Hillary's top aide, Huma Abedin, has been accused of disregarding basic security protocols. She put classified passwords into the hands of foreign agents. No, she didn't. No, that's because she has a Yahoo account insanity, right? Remember sailors' pictures on submarine? Jail. Deep State Justice Department must finally act. Also on Comey and others. You're the president of the United States of America. If you want your Justice Department to take official action, you think there's a just cause, you're worried about a crime, pick up the phone and call them. I don't think he realizes that he's president. Instead, what he's doing is propaganda, distraction. Oh, Mueller's investigating me, but why? And Comey, I fired him because he was investigating me. But the problem is Comey, lock him up. lock up, jail, Abedin, arrest all my political opponents. The reason he can't call the Justice Department and tell them that is because you can't arrest your political opponents in America. That's not how this country works. So instead, he blurts it out on Twitter. And when he does, it becomes official because the president said it. And it creates a giant media cycle. So more important than this stupid story, I want to, one, of course, break down the hypocrisy of this story and show you its irrelevance, but also to show you how the smear works. So in a case like this, the right-wing smear machine, they'll have the Judicial Watch, which, I have mixed feelings about Judicial Watch. I think the conservatives have all the right in the world to have a legal organization that is their own, that pursues it. But a lot of times they dredge up stuff that they just for the rest of this smear machine to work, okay? So then they dig up something that's old, Daily Caller, which is another one of those right-wing websites that you shouldn't trust a word in any of those right-wing websites. It's nonsense after nonsense, made up story after made up story. And in this case, they're like, oh my God, she had a Yahoo account, Yahoo was hacked, we know it, right? So then it goes on Fox and Friends. At 7 a.m., Donald Trump watches, and right after Fox and Friends is over, Donald Trump tweets this tweet. And then all of a sudden it became a real story because the president said it. Repeat and repeat and repeat. Just take anything, any insane thing written on any insane right-wing blog, and then put it on Fox News, and then Trump will say it, and then it'll be an official story. There is no equivalent to that on the left. And forget the left, for the regular news, no one has a machine like this. New York Times will run a story, and then if people are interested, people will talk about it for a while. If NBC has a story, right, people might talk about it a little while and then they drop it. But they don't have a regular machine that takes fabricated stories or even real stories and then hypes them up and hypes them up, have a news network that does nothing but hype them up, and then have a president make them official so that everybody's talking about it. Well, I don't know, should we put Huma Abedin in jail? Should we put James Comey, the former head of the FBI, in jail? What kind of insanity is this? By the way, one last thing on this. If they're going to jail, they're probably going to have company, because if you didn't see this story, this happened recently. There's a headline from Politico. Hundreds of White House emails sent to third Kushner family account. Now, turns out that both Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, and Ivanka, his daughter, both used private email accounts, which are easily hackable. Even after they did the lock 'em up chant, even if after they said Hillary Clinton private, how could they send it to a private email account? We should put her in prison. They chanted it. And then they got in during the transition and at the White House, and they're like, who cares, let's use private email accounts. So Donald Trump, you wanna lock up Huma Abedin and James Comey, put your daughter and your son-in-law right next to them in the jail cells, let alone other people at the White House who did it, including Steve Bannon. You guys all wanna go to jail? You all wanna go to jail? Let's use the same standard. No, all of these are small little stories. And if the president didn't attach a giant bullhorn to it, in reality, this thing was already adjudicated. Again, if we did likewise, we would take the Kushner and Ivanka story, which we covered and told you was a small story, mainly pointed out their hypocrisy. And we would have made a federal case out of it, okay? So you know why? We had bipartisan agreement. Even Trey Gowdy, one of the most right-wing guys, the Benghazi hatchet man for the Republicans, agreed with Cummings, and they put out this statement. With numerous public revelations of senior executive branch employees deliberately trying to circumvent these laws by using personal, private, or alias email addresses to conduct official government business, the committee has aimed to use its oversight and investigative resource to prevent and deter misuse of private forms of written communication. They said that about Trump staffers, about Ivanka, about Kushner, about Bannon, about all of them. They said they have tried to circumvent the law. Now the reality is, it really is a minor issue. They shouldn't do it, Ivanka shouldn't do it, Huma shouldn't have done it, Hillary shouldn't have done it, and we called them out on it just the same way. But if we were the right wing, we'd be like, lock them up, they circumvented the law. Why isn't Ivanka in Guantanamo Bay yet? One side lies and does giant smear jobs, the other side is rational. That's the difference in America. All right, now, I'm not done yet, one last thing. Okay. Unfortunately, we had yet another mass shooting in America. You might not have even heard about it because we have so many of them, it's hard to keep track. In this case, cops were shot and killed. It's a really bad story. So let's go to CNN here. Matthew Reel, a 37-year-old former Army reservist, shot 4 sheriff's deputies who responded to a complaint at his apartment in the Denver suburb of Highlands Ranch on Sunday morning, killing 1, police say. Reel was killed during a subsequent shootout with a police tactical team. A clash that also left a SWAT officer injured, authorities say. Now imagine, so this is Matthew Reel, right? Imagine if instead of looking like this, he was an African American and he had written blogs about how cops were unfair to black people. Imagine if he had said, I believe in Black Lives Matter, and then shot 5 cops. You think you would have heard about it then? I think it would have been news 24/7. Fox News would still be talking about it. This just happened. Nothing. Okay, Tony Spurlock writes, this is speaking for the cops. There were well over 100 rounds fired. He's the Douglas County Sheriff, as you can tell there. There were well over 100 rounds fired. The deputies all went down within almost seconds of each other. So it was more of an ambush type of attack on our officers. If it was a Muslim that did an ambush of 5 cops, shot them all, and killed one of them, do you think that that would be a small story or a gigantic story? If it's a guy who claimed that he was for Black Lives Matter, do you think that'd be a small story? We don't have to speculate. We had guys who were not connected to Black Lives Matter. We had a guy who was kicked out of every African American group he was in, who did a police shooting of similar scope, and it was nonstop news, nonstop news. And look, by the way, that's fair. It's a big deal to have 5 cops shot. But when it's a white right-winger, it doesn't help the narrative. So how do we know he's a right-winger? We'll get a load of this. Police haven't revealed suspected motives for Sunday's shooting, CNN explains, but several law enforcement agencies had been aware weeks beforehand that Reel was accused of writing harassing or suspicious messages online, officials said this week. That includes harassing posts that Reel put on social media sites in November about a traffic stop in the Denver suburb of Lone Tree. So here's a guy who has been writing harassing stuff online, including about cops. And then he wrote stuff about his old law school. And they even had an alert at the school saying, hey, watch out, this guy's unstable. And what he had written about them was, quote, outrageous, vulgar, and alarming, according to the VP of Communications at University of Wyoming. But everybody said, oh, no, he's just having fun. I hear about these alt-right trolls online. They're just having fun. Being vulgar is so fun. Telling people you're gonna harm them is so much fun. We're just having fun, right? His Facebook page contained a number of memes and references associated with the alt-right and message board 4chan. Okay, now look guys, I'm not a knucklehead right-winger. So do I think that that means everybody in the alt-right is guilty about this? No. He apparently read Breitbart News a lot. Does that mean Breitbart is by definition guilty and all the reporters and Steve Bannon is guilty? No, okay? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when you have a guy who's consistently saying outrageous things online, not even all those guys, of course they're not all guilty of anything along these lines, or they're not all going to act violently. But are some of them going to do what they said? Yes. Get it through your thick head, they're not all just joking. Here's more. A review of his Facebook page reveals that he was fond of posting memes associated with the alt-right, specifically Pepe the Frog. How many times have I heard people go, it's fun, it's fun. When they say that they're gonna come to your house and they're gonna do this to you and that to you, it's just fun, it's just fun. When they say they're gonna shoot you, it's just fun. When they say they're gonna rape women, it's just fun. They say it all the time. When they say they're gonna come kill you, oh, you're getting trolled. You have no sense of humor when somebody says death threats to you. It's just fun. right? Here's the most common word he apparently used. You ready for it? Cuck. Just fun. Zachary Parrish was the officer who was killed. He had 2 kids at home. We actually care about the cops, and we care about nonviolence. We don't want anyone on the left doing it. We don't want anyone on the right doing it. We don't want anyone doing it. We care about innocent human beings, and that's why we want to make sure that we fight for justice for all of them, including the police in this country. And as I've said a million times on the show, part of the reason that the cops are nervous and shoot quickly is because everyone else has a gun. So they went in, and in this case, they got ambushed by a guy that I'm sure that a lot of those people online said was just having fun and using all those words and memes and all those threats, but he was kidding. Well, he wasn't kidding, and now a lot of people are hurt, and Zachary Parrish, who everyone at the police department described as a cheery, wonderful young officer, is killed, and he's not going to be able to go home to his family tonight. That's the reality of what happened there. All right, Young Turks.